We all dream of fairy tale romances when we are young, meeting a prince or princess, falling deeply in love, and living happily ever after. But for one young Australian woman named Jane Gillespie, that fairy tale dream actually came true in the most unexpected way. Today, we're going to share the remarkable true story of how a kindergarten teacher from Sydney went on a holiday to Bali in the 1970s and ended up marrying an actual Balinese prince, becoming a real-life princess. It's a story that will take you away to the magical island of Bali and the ancient royal traditions and culture still alive today. This is the real-life fairy tale of Princess Azri of Bali. The Fateful Holiday. You probably haven't had holidays that change the entire course of your lives. But that's exactly what happened to Jane Gillespie in 1977 when she took a trip to Bali with her mother. At the time, Jane was living in Sydney and working as a kindergarten teacher after earning her degree in child psychology. She had no idea the holiday would lead to an extraordinary encounter that would rewrite her future. Jane and her mom checked into the gorgeous Puri Saraswati bungalows in the spiritual town of Ubud. The lush green gardens and stunning Balinese architecture took Jane's breath away. Little did she know, staying at this royal palace hotel would open the door to an incredible romantic destiny. Meeting her prince. It was at the Puri Saraswati that Jane first locked eyes on a strikingly handsome local man, Prince Chilakorda Raka Kurthiasa of Ubud's royal family. At the time, the charming prince loved meeting tourists and introducing them to Balinese culture and way of life. And that particular day, he laid eyes on a beautiful tourist from Australia that would later become the mother to his children. As Jane spent more time talking with Prince Raka about his life, his interests in children's theatre and Balinese customs, she found herself increasingly drawn to him. There was just something so special about their connection and chemistry. Before she knew it, her holiday fling had blossomed into a full-blown romance straight out of a fairy tale. But she had to say goodbye to her prince after their magical holiday romance. Jane was heartbroken to leave Bali and return to normal life back in Sydney's classroom. But Prince Raka didn't let their magical love story end there. A royal courtship. After returning to Australia, a lovesick Jane found that her once satisfying life as a kindergarten teacher just didn't feel right anymore. Her heart longed to be back in the island paradise with her prince. Luckily, Prince Raka felt the same way. Despite the geographical distance between them, he and Jane began writing letters back and forth to keep that spark alive, as there were no telephones at that time in Bali. And as the months passed, Jane realized there was no denying her feelings or the charming pull of Bali. She made the extremely bold decision to resign from her teaching job and fly back to Ubud for a 3-month vacation. Jane told herself the plan was just to write a children's book during her stay. But come on, we all know the real reason that brought her back. She was madly in love with Prince Raka. From the second Jane arrived back in Ubud, it was clear destiny had other plans. Prince Raka raced to see her at the hotel, and the spark between them was just as electric as before. This wasn't just another holiday fling. They had found true, lasting love against all odds. Before long, the prince romantically proposed, and Jane didn't hesitate before saying yes to becoming his wife. Jane's parents, Mrs. Gillespie and Lieutenant Colonel Rollo Gillespie, who was the private secretary to the governor of NSW until 1974, did not realize that Jane's friendship with the prince had turned into a romance. That happened a few months later when Jane herself told them they were going to marry. Becoming a princess. Of course, Jane marrying into the Balinese royal family was far from a simple affair. We can only imagine the scrutiny and skepticism this young Australian woman faced from Prince Raka's relatives when he decided to marry a commoner from outside the royal bloodlines. In fact, the family was so concerned about Jane's background that they actually took her passport and had Interpol investigate her to make sure she was legitimate. Can you picture poor Jane having to deal with that stress and interrogation just for falling in love? Thankfully, the background checks came back clean, and Jane embraced converting to Hindu beliefs, a requirement of joining the royal family. Before she knew it, this ordinary kindergarten teacher found herself walking down the aisle in a beautiful Balinese ceremony to become Princess Jero Asri Kirthiasa. She changed her name to Princess Jero Asri Kirthiasa. Jero means from the palace, and Asri means perfect. How's that for a fairy tale moment? A royal life. While becoming an actual princess marked an incredible, dream-come-true chapter for Jane, it also meant her life took a drastic turn in every possible way. This new lifestyle was completely different from her modern existence in Sydney. As she said it herself, "It was a radical change in lifestyle and a whole new culture for me to embrace." For starters, in those days the palace didn't even have basic amenities like running water or electricity that Jane was used to. She went from a normal house in Australia to living without plumbing, using kerosene lamps, and having no way to communicate by telephone with the outside world. A bit of a culture shock going from Miss Jane to Princess Asri overnight, wouldn't you say? Princess Asri also had to adapt to strict royal protocols, family scrutiny, and a vastly different culture than the one she knew. She suddenly had palace staff, responsibilities to attend royal ceremonies, and duties from sunup to sundown that she had never imagined. As she stated, "I had to learn royal protocols, of course. The duties normally consist of being present at temple ceremonies, community and royal events, and traditional ceremonies." But through all the changes and massive learning curves, Princess Asri embraced her new role and life. She was head over heels in love and eager to respect the traditions of Prince Raka and her new Balinese family. Their incredible love story had transformed this ordinary Sydney woman into real royalty, opening her eyes to an exotic world she never dreamed possible before. Royal family life today. Fast forward over 40 years, and Princess Asri and Prince Raka's devotion has stood the test of time and vast cultural differences. The prince, being the prince, could have easily gone on to have multiple wives, but he chose the pure love he found in Jane, who couldn't bear to share her love. They now have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter who carry on the royal family legacy. And like something out of a movie plot twist, one of their sons, Prince Jok Gus, carried on the family's storybook romance tradition by falling in love with the famous Indonesian TV star Happy Salma while she was on holiday in Bali. CTA. To watch how that story turned out, click the first link in the description. Witnessing their sons, daughter, and now grandchildren growing up to embrace their dual Australian Balinese heritage has been an incredible journey for Princess Asri and Prince Raka. The family splits time between Bali and Australia, committed to preserving royal customs while still having exposure to Western culture. Of course, royal life in the modern era looks a bit different than when Princess Asri first arrived in the 1970s as a newcomer. These days, Prince Raka embraces his role as spiritual leader of Ubud, charged with overseeing cultural and religious affairs in the community. Meanwhile, Princess Asri spends her time running a popular cafe called Bikku, sharing her fairy tale story firsthand with visitors. No royal rules. Looking back on the decades since that unexpected Bali holiday, Princess Asri has zero regrets about taking a leap of faith, following her heart, and committing herself to an extraordinary new life. Because at the end of the day, real love doesn't care about royalty rules or traditions. For Princess Asri, it simply came down to recognizing Prince Raka as her soulmate when she first met him all those years ago. As she said, "When you know, you know." Princess Asri knew Prince Raka was the one for her from that first magical encounter on holiday. And decades later, he still absolutely is. Their storybook romance has not only defied conventions, but inspired new generations of their family to create love stories just as magical and unexpected. So next time you daydream about meeting someone special on an exotic holiday, just remember, sometimes fairy tales really do come true in the most surprising and wonderful ways. What do you think was the most surprising part of Jane's transformation into Princess Asri? Comment below and let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another magical story from our channel. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.